out of the limelight. He's hurting. And this is what he's best at giving interviews.
You know what's funny? You see it that way. I see it as I think he really does think he's better than half the quarterbacks in this league.
He probably does.
I like that.
He probably does.
I like that a lot.
I be hoping you got something positive to say about me. You only say negative stuff about me. No. And I'm like, I ain't do nothing to you.
No, don't think that.
I ain't seen nothing positive to ever say. I think something positive to anything.
Tony Grossi thought he had the hottest take in the room until Shedeur Sanders stepped in and burned that whole narrative to ashes. One moment, Grossi was puffing his chest like a proud peacock, and the next, he looked like he was searching how to delete opinions fast on Google. This wasn't a simple clapback. It was a total public demolition, and the smoke's still rising from the wreckage. Stick around because Shedeur didn't just win, he made Grossi wish he'd stayed quiet in the first place.
Said it a million times, and I'll say it 1,003,452 times if I need to. There's no way you can hate Shedeur Sanders. Tony Grossi, a guy who is known in the Cleveland media for not being a fan favorite, for always being annoying, asking the wrong questions, starting all types of problems. Shedeur Sanders went up to him and straight up had the question for him.
Tony Grossi strutted into that studio like he was packing heavy ammo, ready to blast Shedeur Sanders' reputation into tiny confetti pieces. But what he didn't realize, his so-called cannon was loaded with Nerf darts. He sat down, puffed out his chest, and dropped a take so outdated it sounded like something from a guy who still brags about having dial-up internet.
A little developing story out of Cleveland. Tony Grossi of the Daily Grossi, him and Big Chops was on their podcast today, and they had some choice words to say about what Shedeur said when he was interviewed by his locker on his comments about him being ready, he wants to play now, and then talking about the quarterback play around the NFL.
Shedeur, meanwhile, didn't have to say a single extra word. His confidence did all the talking. The moment he stepped in, Grossi's whole argument melted faster than an ice cream cone sitting in an Arizona parking lot. The setup couldn't be clearer. The Browns' offense was so dull it made watching paint dry feel like a blockbuster event. And Joe Flacco, bless his fossilized bones, was out there handling the football like it was a live grenade, just trying to toss it away before it exploded in his hands.
I don't begrudge any player saying what's on his mind. He didn't approach them. Justin approached him, but you got to be mindful of what you say. And I think the one quote that, from what I see around the league, I could do better.
Do you think it was directed as his teammates or no? And
I don't think that.
Malice? No,
but
malice.
But it could come just like when Dylan Gabriel said, I'm a competitor, not an entertainer. Everyone assumed he was talking about Shedeur.
Yeah.
The same thing you could assume.
Yeah.
Yes. Shedeur can't help himself.
Meanwhile, Cleveland's wide receivers were running routes like they were at a track meet nobody bothered to attend. Total chaos on the field, and right in the middle of it all sits Shedeur Sanders, the rookie, the third stringer, just chilling, minding his business. Then comes ESPN Cleveland with a question so basic it could have been answered in 4 syllables flat. Do you feel ready to play?
Shedeur Sanders found Tony Grossi, the one that y'all look at my last video. I talked about him having an agenda of constantly saying bad things about Shedeur. Shedeur found him after the game and addressed him. I think we all can take a page out of Shedeur's book about somebody who constantly has something negative to say about you, and you don't necessarily know how to approach it. And Shedeur calmly went over to him and said that, man, I hope you finally got something positive to say after tonight, because you're always saying something negative about me, and I don't know what I did to you.
Now let's hit pause for a second. What's the right answer here? Picture this. You're a rookie quarterback in the NFL, cameras flashing, mics in your face, and a reporter asks if you feel ready. What are you supposed to say? Nah, I'm trash. Coach should cut me today. Of course not. You say what every real athlete says. You say you're ready. That's the bare minimum level of confidence. Without that, you're not even sniffing the practice squad. But Tony Grossi didn't see it that way. Oh no. He heard those 4 syllables and decided Shedeur was some fame-chasing diva who couldn't survive a day without trending online. His logic was wild. This guy's QB3 sitting on the bench, the team's a mess, and somehow it's Shedeur's fault just because he said he's ready? That's like blaming the substitute teacher for why the whole school district is failing math. And that's where the comedy really begins. Grossi spent a solid chunk of time yelling about how Shedeur supposedly never met a camera he didn't like, how he's addicted to viral moments, starving for attention, shaking from highlight withdrawals. But then, about 3 minutes into his own rant, Grossi slips up and admits the truth. ESPN Cleveland approached Shedeur. They asked the question. They shoved the mic in his face and published the clip. So no, Shedeur wasn't chasing the spotlight. The spotlight got dropped on him hard, like a stage light falling straight from the rafters.
Standing on business while keeping it lighthearted, and just, this is how leaders or people win over people. I'm so curious to know if this is going to change Tony Grossi's perspective on Shedeur Sanders. And if he does start to say positive things and maybe starts to like Shedeur Sanders. But it seems as if Shedeur right now can do no wrong. I pray that he continues to walk on this path because Cleveland has needed a guy like Shedeur. We've had the Nick Chubbs of the world. We've had the Denzel Wards. We've experienced the Myles Garretts of the world and David Njoku's and Baker Mayfield's and Jarvis Landry's, but we've never experienced anything quite like Shedeur Sanders, and I'm here for every ounce of it.
That's strike one, Grossi. His whole argument that Shedeur was thirsty for media attention fell apart the second he admitted the media came to Shedeur, not the other way around. That's like accusing someone of robbing a bank when they were literally at home binging Netflix the whole time. But then Grossi, without even realizing it, set himself up for strike two. In the middle of trying to bash Shedeur, he blurts out that the Browns' offense is struggling to score points. Oh, really, genius? You don't say. That's like announcing that water is wet or grass is green. Everyone in Cleveland's been watching this offense sputter like a beat-up car running on expired gasoline. Flacco couldn't hit a 5-yard out route without looking like he was aiming for the cheerleaders on the sideline. The run game, it stalled so hard it might as well have had a sponsor called AAA Tow Truck Services. And here's Grossi, trying to tear Shedeur down, but instead proving exactly why Shedeur might be right to say he's ready. The man basically set up his own trap door and walked right into it, trying to call Shedeur delusional, but instead handing him the perfect alibi.
It's how you address somebody with being direct, but also being non-threatening. Because at the end of the day, we know we can't run up on somebody and really tell them how we feel because we're going to continue this narrative that they're trying to paint us to be. But Shedeur addressed him in a very respectful but direct way. And hopefully Tony ain't going to have nothing else to say that's out of line. We don't mind critique, but let it make.
Strike three hit when Grossi tried to pull the classic sports talk two-step, bash the player for having confidence, then immediately admit quarterbacks need confidence. He went on a full rant about how Shedeur's ego was supposedly out of control, saying he shouldn't be talking about being ready, calling it arrogant and cocky. But then seconds later, he admits, well, quarterbacks should feel ready. That's part of the job. Excuse me, what? That's like saying eating cake ruins your diet while you're still licking frosting off the fork. Pick a lane, Tony. Now let's get into that Rams preseason game, because Grossi treated it like the Zapruder film. He couldn't stop bringing it up, acting like that one preseason showing was the ultimate proof of Shedeur's entire NFL destiny. According to him, Sanders took a few sacks, and somehow that alone meant he wasn't ready for prime time. But here's what he conveniently left out. Shedeur didn't turn the ball over, not once. 0 interceptions, 0 fumbles. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel, another young quarterback on the same roster, tossed a pick and fumbled in his limited snaps. But sure, let's bash the rookie who actually held onto the ball, because apparently taking sacks behind a backup offensive line is worse than handing the defense 2 free possessions.
Narrative. I don't understand your emotional investment in Shedeur.
Tony, I'm rooting for the kid. Don't worry about what my investment is. Worry about what your investment is with your guy. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about why I like a guy. I think that kid can play better than Dylan Gabriel. I said it before the draft, and I'll stick to it. I think he got a raw deal here in Cleveland. End of story. That's how I feel. Don't tell me how to feel.
You know what NFL coaches actually care about more than anything? Turnovers. You can survive sacks. You can live with a few incomplete passes. But the second you start coughing up the ball, it's over. That's the one commandment in Kevin Stefanski's offense. Don't give the ball to the other team. Yet somehow, Grossi completely ignores that basic reality. He's too busy looping the same tired clip of those sacks, acting like they were career-ending disasters. That's like criticizing a chef for burning toast once while ignoring the guy who burned down the whole kitchen. Priorities, Tony. Priorities. Then he says quarterbacks should always be confident, but in the next breath, he tears down Shedeur for being confident. By the end of it, Grossi had twisted himself into such a mess, you could have stood him up as a pretzel display in a mall food court. This wasn't analysis. It was a man publicly losing an argument with himself in real time. And here's the wild part. While Grossi's out here foaming at the mouth about how Shedeur needs to sit down and stop seeking attention, Kevin Stefanski, you know, the actual head coach of the Cleveland Browns, is calmly telling reporters that every player's working hard and all of them feel ready.
He's got the fewest reps in camp, and he's got a sore arm. Why? Well, people say he throws a lot before practice and after practice. Well, how counterproductive is that?
I'm sure there's a method to the madness.
What is it?
He's trying to get his arm right, Tone. I'm sure he's probably practiced more now than he has at any point in his
Well, obviously
career.
it was counterproductive because he's got a sore arm.
Okay, so you're using that as a negative against the kid?
I don't understand.
Jesus, God, would you give him a chance?
Well,
My God,
here's the
because his
thing.
arm's sore?
Yeah.
What, that's a negative, that the kid's got a sore arm?
Yes!
Because he's working too hard? Damn!
In other words, Stefanski basically shrugged and said, yeah, of course he feels ready. That's completely normal. The head coach wasn't clutching his pearls over Shedeur's confidence. He wasn't lecturing about humility. He was just acknowledging reality. So if the coach himself doesn't see an issue, why is Tony Grossi out here acting like it's a national crisis? It almost feels like the outrage had nothing to do with football at all. The funniest part is that Tony Grossi strutted in thinking he was dropping gospel truth, only to realize he was preaching straight from the book of outdated nonsense. Someone should tell that to the defensive lines Shedeur's juked so hard they're spinning like contestants on a carnival teacup ride. Shedeur isn't just proving himself, he's invoicing every critic, collecting interest and charging late fees on their doubt. The receipts are endless, and Grossi's the one left looking like he forgot to pay his balance. And the irony? It's rich. Grossi tried to play gatekeeper, guarding the so-called sacred halls of quarterback respectability like some cranky security guard in a polyester jacket.
Honestly, I really respect the way that Shedeur Sanders handled this interaction with Tony Grossi. If you don't know who Tony Grossi is, he's a Browns reporter who has been around for a really long time and has been highly critical of the team and its players, which sometimes is justified, sometimes is a little over the top. He's really known for getting into it with Baker Mayfield over the years and had some not nice things to say about his height in particular. He's obviously been highly critical of Shedeur as well since he got to Cleveland, and Shedeur handled this with class and in a really lighthearted manner. Like, I really respect that he kind of said it to his face and was like, yeah, you say negative stuff about me. Like, what do you have to say about that? But he also like laughed it off and was patting his back. So he wasn't taking it too seriously. Like, he came at it from a really...
But the moment Shedeur lit him up, it was like everyone suddenly realized the security guard's badge was made of plastic. Nobody was buying Grossi's authority anymore. The gate he was guarding swung wide open, and Shedeur just strolled through like he owned the entire building. And it gets even better, because instead of doubling down with facts, Grossi leaned right into those tired old-school cliches. He started tossing out played-out lines about proving it on the big stage, as if Shedeur hadn't already turned some of the league's toughest matchups into his own personal highlight reels. Grossi wanted to sound like the wise football elder, but he ended up sounding like that one guy at the bar who keeps saying they don't make quarterbacks like they used to, while still trying to figure out what a zone read even is. This whole fiasco proves one thing: some people just don't know when to retire their playbook. Grossi's still out here using arguments carved on stone tablets, while Shedeur's rewriting the quarterback manual on an iPad Pro. It's not even a competition anymore. It's historical fiction versus live-streamed reality. One side's frozen in black and white, and the other's broadcasting in 4K Ultra HD.
Well, guys, man, I'm here to tell you, man, Tony Grossi of the Daily Grossi is back at it again. Every chance he can get, to slander or hate on Shedeur Sanders, he's going to do it. Now, we all know, I did a video earlier today about Shedeur Sanders talking about he was ready and talking about the quarterback play that has been displayed around the NFL. And he says he think he could, do better than some of the quarterbacks that are playing right now.
And guess which side the audience actually tuned in for? The funniest part is, Grossi really thought the fans were going to rally behind him. He probably pictured a standing ovation from the back-in-my-day crowd, the same folks who still swear the forward pass ruined football, but instead, fans roasted him like a marshmallow at a summer bonfire. The clips got replayed, the memes went viral, and Grossi's credibility plummeted straight into meme territory. Shedeur didn't just win, he handed everyone free entertainment for the whole week. And the wildest part? He didn't even have to try that hard. There was no dramatic mic drop moment, just pure, calm logic backed by actual results. Shedeur was practically holding up a scoreboard saying, "Look at the wins, look at the stats, look at the tape." Meanwhile, Grossi was over there fumbling through excuses, praying nobody noticed his entire argument had already been nuked. Spoiler alert! Everybody noticed. The beauty of this whole implosion is that Tony Grossi truly thought he was standing on solid ground, like his take was carved in granite.
Hey man, look, Shedeur Sanders, I really wish he didn't give Cleveland media as much content as he gave, but it seems like every single time he opens his mouth, these Browns, whether it's the Mary Kay Cabbage, whether it's the disrespectful Tony Grossi, it does not matter. They're going to find a way to get greasy and get greasy and find a way to have Shedeur Sanders in his mouth. And here's something I want to point out, right? I'm going to point out a few things in this video because I really am tired of Tony Grossi. At first, I thought he was just an old school type guy. Hey, maybe he's rough on, but no. At this point, you're purposely trying to bury Shedeur, who's already being buried and has been buried.
But the second Shedeur Sanders pushed back, Grossi's whole argument collapsed like a sandcastle at high tide. He wasn't defending football logic, he was defending his ego. And egos don't last long when the truth comes crashing in like a tidal wave. The funniest part was how fast the narrative flipped. Grossi went from self-proclaimed guardian of truth to a man desperately rewriting his opinion in real time. Watching him backpedal was pure comedy, like watching a toddler try to moonwalk. Clumsy, awkward, and hilarious for all the wrong reasons. He didn't just stumble, he tripped over his own words and fell face first into the mud. Meanwhile, Shedeur stood there cool and composed, like the kid who showed up with all the right answers while everyone else was still guessing. With every point Shedeur made, you could literally feel the audience tuning out of Grossi's tired lecture. The second Shedeur flipped the script, it stopped being a debate. It turned into a demolition derby. A few well-aimed points, and suddenly Grossi's so-called masterpiece argument looked like a crayon doodle from kindergarten. And that's when the regret hit, because it's one thing to lose a debate, but it's another to realize you were outmatched before it even began.
Probably one of the more polarizing players in all of the NFL, and he's a third stringer that y'all said shouldn't be talked about a lot. So where I want to start with this is, y'all know the quote, y'all know what Shedeur said. He said, "I'm ready right now." Jimmy Horn Jr. trademark, you know how that gets down. And he said, "Look, of course I feel like I'm ready to play. I'm ready to get down." So what did Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, I'm sure he was so upset at Shedeur, huh? Tell him, Kevin.
And let's not skip over the sheer pettiness of it all, because Grossi wasn't just wrong, he was loud and wrong. He puffed out his chest, raised his voice, leaned all the way in, and then got steamrolled so hard the whole room caught secondhand embarrassment. It was like watching someone step up to karaoke full of confidence, then butcher every note while the crowd slowly looks away in pain. That's Tony Grossi in a nutshell. He didn't just miss the target, he fired the arrow backwards. He thought he had the authority, but Shedeur came with the receipts. And in today's game, receipts always beat rhetoric. Now Grossi's stuck wearing the badge of instant regret like a scarlet letter. He can spin it however he wants, but that clip is out there forever, looping non-stop, reminding everyone just how badly he fumbled this one. Shedeur didn't just destroy his argument, he branded Grossi into sports history as a walking, talking cautionary tale. Say what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more wild sports moments like this one.